Good afternoon. This is our workshop series on Let's Get Back to Business. My name is Greta Rivera, and I'm the Director of Grants and Programs at the Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Foundation. And with me, I have Veronica Cordova, the Grants and Program Manager. I just want to give you a little overview on what it is we do, just in case you don't know about us and you heard through us through the SBA. The Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is a membership-driven organization that supports the economic development of the greater DC metropolitan region. And what we do is we offer support by facilitating networking events, advocacy, education, and of course, access to capital. With us today, we have the SBA, our SBA liaison, Roderick Johnson. He is our lender relations specialist who will be opening with some remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Roderick Johnson, and I am the Lender Relations Small Business Development Center Project Officer for the Washington Metropolitan District Office. We cover Prince George's and Montgomery County, Northern Virginia, and Washington, DC. So I am actually happy to be here this afternoon because I used to actually lend money to construction contractors. I used to love that and see all these wonderful buildings going up around in DC, all the home renovations that were being done. And I just love the construction industry because I can actually touch and feel the project that's going on. And so Celie here will be talking about how to obtain your general contractor and home improvement license in DC. I just know that it's very rewarding work. And if you need bonding, the SBA does have a bonding program for contractors. So don't be shy about reaching out to the SBA about that. And so if you haven't received your idle money where you apply at SBA.gov, there is still $180 billion left in the pot for you to get your hands on to sustain your businesses, okay? So there's still $180 billion left. If you haven't applied, please apply. I want you to be able to get your hands on some of that money so that you can retain your employees, pay yourself, and your vendors. So with that, I will turn it over to Celie, and she will walk us through what we need to do to get a general contractor's license in DC.
Hi, good afternoon. I am one of the bilingual business advisors with the foundation, and I have over 15 years of experience with government and consulting and project management. And for the last, I would say 3 years, I've been really focusing on the construction industry, working with many of our local minority contractors, particularly in the construction. So I am, very well familiar with the business licensing process and contracts and estimates. And we provide a lot of training support in addition to one-on-one technical assistance. We are able to work with different contractors at various different levels, from startups to those who, are ready to go and maybe apply for some of these SBA bonding programs and be able to qualify for greater contracts. So with that being said, we do share the same vision as the foundation. Our mission has always been to educate, empower, and connect our minority entrepreneur community with opportunities in government and private sector through what we're doing today, information dissemination, capacity building, to really enhance and our social and economic development opportunities. So today's workshop will be informal. Obviously, it's informational, and generally we will talk about certain concepts. But if you have any questions, we will address them at the very end, and you'll have access to my contact information if you need additional information, particularly to your business. So let's get started. So There are different types of construction or remodeling licenses in the DMV region. Today we are focusing on DC contractor licenses. Some of you on this call or some of you that may get to hear this presentation afterwards may not be necessarily based out of DC, but may be from other states looking to do business in DC as either a general contractor or a home improvement contractor. So I'm hoping that this information will be general enough and have enough information for you to understand what the process is. One of the differences between the home improvement license in the 3 states is that DC requires no exam for home improvement. And so that is, I think that opens up a lot more opportunities for especially some of our minority contractors who a lot of times, because of the language barrier or other barriers, are not able to pass an exam. But in DC, there's no exam, so that's good news. For general contractor license in DC, there are various different classes, and we will go into that. But overall, again, there's no test to be taken in DC. You do need to take a test in other, for example, in Virginia, you do have a requirement to take an exam, and Maryland does not have a general contractor license. So anybody that wants to do business in DC will have to go through their process. But it's very, I think, to me, it's very construction friendly. For the most part, both the home improvement and the general contractor requirements are pretty much the same for a few exceptions. So for home improvement in DC, and as well as in other states, you will need to obviously demonstrate your experience, that you have a legitimate registered business in DC, you have the proper insurance, financial capacity of the owners, and in some cases in DC, for example, we will be looking at background checks, surety bonds, in some cases credit reports, and like I said, in DC we do not have an exam. In terms of general contractors, same, make sure that you are properly registered, you have the proper insurances, financial capacity, bonding capacity in order to do business in DC. So let's get into a little bit of the more specifics about what each license covers and allows you to do. What type of work are you allowed to do under a specific license? So these are some of the requirements. So in the District of Columbia, we have 2 types of construction licenses: home improvement contractor license and the general contractor construction manager license. They both require the applicant to pay a fee, to be properly registered with DCRA, have a tax ID number, show the proper certificate of liability insurance, clean hands, and for the example, the home improvement salesperson license, there's much more specific requirements, which we'll get into. All this is done through DCRA. So while there are similarities, there are 2 different types of licenses, and they vary according to the type of work you are going to be engaged in. For a home improvement contractor license, you will require to, in addition to all the documentation, which is very similar to the general contractor license, you need an additional $25,000 surety bond. And you need to submit additional documentation in terms of sample contracts and a salesperson designation letter, meaning that's the person that's going to be your salesperson rep. And that person has to provide a police criminal history report. So that's for DC. For general contractor construction manager, The requirements are different, and we'll go over that, particularly on the type of license class. It's really determined on the amount of insurance that you have in your policy. And you will need to submit copies of, at least 2 sample contracts or receipts that you, to show obviously that you are in business, you have clients, and you have, in some way, pues, past performance. So additionally, once you become a general contractor, like, it is your responsibility, if you are subcontracting out work, particularly if they're trades, that they are properly licensed: plumbers, gas fitters, electricians, refrigeration and air conditioning technicians, for example. If you hire them, they must have the proper license in DC. And that is usually a process through the DC Board of Industrial Trades. So we're not going to focus on those particular licenses today, but just something to keep in mind, that you do have to have the proper licenses if you are subcontracting the work, or if you yourself are involved in that kind of trade. So who needs a contractor license? The District of Columbia defines a general contractor construction manager under NAIC codes 23-238990 as any person who, for a fee, is contracted to do construction or on real property owned, controlled, or leased by another person of commercial, industrial, institutional, governmental, residential, or accessory use buildings or structures. So it's very broad. And so that tells you how, this is really an opportunity if you're starting out, or if you're already in business, to be able to expand. So meaning you can do commercial, you can do government, so this is really important. So you don't need different licenses, you need one license. And that will cover pretty much any type of commercial, if you will, work. And especially in DC, I mean, we have so many buildings going up that are quasi-governmental, industrial, commercial, and so there's a lot of opportunities, and we obviously see a lot of residential new construction being built. So that's really what you need in terms of having the proper license. General contractor also includes those involved in heavy construction, state highway work, land development, and the construction of new buildings. Interestingly enough, the general contractor construction manager also includes remodeling, repair, improvement, or demolition of these buildings or structures. So it's pretty comprehensive what you can do with the license, but it is different from a home improvement contractor. The District of Columbia, like I said, uses NAIC code 236118 to describe what a home improvement contractor is allowed to do. And that is a contractor who conducts any of the following: the repair, remodeling, alteration, conversion, or modernization of or addition to residential properties, as well as more particularly defined in the regulations. The difference between the two licenses is defined by DCRA and special instructions. So the language reads, if a general contractor performs work on existing residential properties, so pay attention to this, a basic business license for home improvement contractor category is not required. So the interpretation, and I've spoken with folks at DCRA and folks that I have worked before, is that if you have your general contractor license, that would allow you to do both commercial and home improvement. However, there's a difference. General contractors and home improvement contractors will be required to obtain a basic business license for a home improvement salesperson. So within your organization, if you have individuals who are going to be working for you and they are going to be your home improvement salesperson, meaning they're going to go out and get you clients, knock on people's door, try to engage in new business, those individuals must have a home improvement salesperson license. So that's the difference, okay? If you are a company that only does home improvement work, then you need your home improvement contractor license. There are some folks that I work with where they do both, but there's some that are just starting out, and a lot of contractors start out with doing residential work and then they transition to do more commercial work. Sometimes it's the other way. Sometimes folks are working on commercial and they begin to expand into more of the new construction, home construction or home remodeling. And so they are able to then expand and maybe add more people to their teams and add the home improvement salesperson license if that's what they need. So I think that's one distinction that a lot of people sometimes don't understand. In terms of the duration of the license is good for 2 years. Subcontractors working in the specialty trades need additional license, as said before. You really need to check with the District of Columbia Board of Industrial Trades to find out whether the kind of work that you're doing requires that specialty trade license. It's very important. And so you need to check with them and go back to DCRA and make sure that you have all the proper documentation. In terms of licensing and registration fee, there is there's a difference between obtaining your general contractor license and your home improvement salesperson license. So, you're looking at $654 just the license, not the entire process, depending on where you are in your business. If you are a new business, you have to pay obviously your fees for registering your business and obtaining certain documentation, your insurance. So you have to put that into consideration when you're obtaining your license. So it's just that fee is not all you're going to be paying for. So, creating a budget and understanding, okay, how much am I going to be paying for insurance? How much my registration cost me? The actual license per se, and so there's all different types of expenses associated with getting a license. And the home improvement salesperson license is relatively less than the construction manager license, but again, you have to look at the additional costs associated with it. Excuse me. The District of Columbia doesn't require general contractors to pass an exam, as I previously stated. Just make sure that your subcontractors have the adequate trade license, or if you are doing everything in-house, that you are properly licensed in that particular industrial trade. So let's talk about the actual process and where to go and what to do. So we had a training a couple of days ago where we talked about how to do business in DC. And so this is your first stop. So if you are opening up a business in DC, you need to make sure that you are properly registered. And DCRA has put together Corp Online is basically your portal for new registrations. If you're a domestic, meaning if you're based out of DC, if your office is located in DC, you are considered a domestic business. This is the portal where you will file for your registration, whether you're going to be an LLC or an Inc. or whatever type of structure, you will be required to register your business. And this is the same portal where you'll file your biannual reports, and you're going to order your documents such as your good standing certificate, which you will need for the licenses. So this is your first step. Now, if you are a business coming into DC, if you're, let's say, from Maryland or Virginia, then you are considered a foreign corporation. So you must follow the proper registration to do business in DC. And so that's a set of, different documents in order to make sure that you are properly registered in DC. And you also need to make sure that you are in good standing with your home state. So this is where I would start. You would need to create an account, and it will walk you through in terms of properly filing your registration. Next step is for you to become familiarized with the portal, Access DC, DCRA. It's going to give you access to a step-by-step wizard on how to obtain your license. So depending on where you are in your business and the type of license that you require, it will generate for you a wizard. It asks you questions about your business, whether you're domestic, whether you're foreign, whether you're looking to do home improvement, or whether you're looking to do commercial work, if you're doing both. So it will trigger a certain set of questions, and depending on how you answer, then it's going to tailor for you a checklist. And so that is going to be your guiding, that's your map, that's your roadmap for you to be able to gather all the documentations that you're going to need. So let's talk about more specifically in terms of the DC General Contractor license and what are some of the fees and documents associated. So again, application itself is $654.50 for 2 years. You will need certificate of liability insurance. If you are based in DC, you will need a certificate of occupancy. So, one point to make is that if you are in construction and if you have big trucks and if you have a lot of people coming in and you have a lot of equipment, then you need to be in the proper zone. You really need to check. And if you haven't signed a lease, make sure that the location that you're looking at and talk to your landlord and make sure that they have the proper certificate of occupancy so that you're able to get that from them. Obviously, make sure that you have your business entity registered, and you will provide sample contracts and invoices. Now, you don't have to disclose your client's information. You can cross that out, but they do want to see what a typical contract looks like from your business, and what our invoices look like. So making sure that you're registered with Office of Tax and Revenue, tax registration. So for any business, you need to have filed FR 500. So you need to have a clean hand certificate. And once you've gathered all your documentation, and you'll be able to go into the system and upload them for investigation and final approval. Now, it varies. The last few applications that I've submitted, it's been taking a little over, I would say, they're close to 2 months, so 60 days. So, I think they're trying to catch up. Obviously, because most of them are working from home. So, I think it creates a little bit of a challenge sometimes. So in terms of the general contractor license, I just wanted to point out that in DC, your general contract license has different classes, and they allow you to do certain amount of size projects. So Class A has no limit. Contractors can work on any size and value of contracts. So, some of those larger DCs, taking on multi-million-dollar contracts, that's the kind of Class A license you need. Class B is for projects over $10 million. Class C is for projects less than $5 million. Class D is for projects less than $2 million. And Class E is for projects less than 500,000. So if you're a new company, Class E, probably the one that you want to have. And again, it's based on your insurance and what you're doing. So, and we know that certain insurance, certain trades, certain types of services cost more. You know, there's workers' comp and general liability is higher on certain trades. In terms of insurance requirement, I just want to point out, because we run into this quite a lot, is when we're submitting our information for insurance requirements, you need to make sure that you talk to your insurance provider and let them know exactly what you're trying to get, which is a general certificate of general liability. And they have to be very specific. Your certificate of insurance, your COI, has to make sure, number one, that is issued to your organization. So exactly the way that your name appears on the corporations division at DCRA, that's the way that it has to appear. It has to issue the premise address provided on your basic license. So you have to have, you know, the license, the address where you'll be conducting your operations. Include a description and location of services. So in this case, general contractor, construction manager license, and the certificate holder has to display Department of Consumer Regulatory Affairs and the address as I'm showing it to you. And there has to be additional language in the COI that says that its coverage is in full force and effect during the duration of the license period. Now, what does that mean? DSCRA wants you to be covered for the whole entire time of your license. So that means 2 years of coverage. So if you're applying for your license, let's say in the month of September, and you start the process, you need to make sure that that certificate of insurance is from September 2020 to September 2022. So it has to show 2 years coverage. So that's something that you have to talk to your insurance provider, because a lot of times there's a little bit of conflict there or miscommunication. And they won't accept 1 year coverage. They won't accept if you already have, let's say that you already have coverage from January, and you just update it from January through 2022. That is not going to be accepted. It's going to be, they're going to return it to you and you have to go back. And so make sure that you address that before you send any of the paperwork out. So I'm not going to go into the specifics, like I said, but basically your insurance will guide the type of license that you need. For home improvement contractors, each applicant will need to furnish an original certificate of insurance policy with a minimum limit of liability of $50,000. So for bodily injury, one person, any single accident, $100,000 for in the aggregate, and $10,000 for property damage in any single accident for the license period pursuant to DC per the official code. So let's talk about the DC home improvement license. So if you're a DC home improvement contractor, okay, no exam, which is that's good. You need to have your certificate of liability, your certificate of occupancy, your business registration. Now, this is where the difference is. You need to have a home improvement contract that has the language, based on DC law. So make sure that your home improvement contractor has your information, the language is specific, way that you conduct your business, a clear defined statement of work, any payment terms, any warranties, any in case there's any dispute. So, all the proper language that a home improvement contract needs to have. You should have a really good contract to back you up. You will need a home improvement salesperson designation letter if you're applying for the home improvement salesperson. That person that you are assigning as your salesperson will need to have that letter sign and basically, you're confirming that this person works for you and that they will work on your behalf and they will represent you. You will need to provide a criminal background report for, the person that's going to be representing and holding the license. You will need 3 passport photos, and you will also need to submit a notarized affidavit. If you're applying, let's say if you're the owner and applying for it, or if you have somebody that, it's doing that, you need to demonstrate where you have worked in the past. And make sure you are registered with the Office of Tax and Revenue. So those are some of the items. So as I stated before, the wizard, it's your best friend, aside from me probably. It will walk you through the process from beginning to end. It will let you know whether you're missing anything in terms of your registration. It will take you back to DCRA for you to be able to file your business entity. And again, this is just a sample of one that I did, a client that I'm working with, that they're out of state. So we have to obviously, because we indicated we were not based out of DC, but they're doing so much work in DC, now they're moving basically their operations, but right now they're still are based out of Maryland. But so I indicated that we were an out-of-state business, and so we need to go through the process and complete Form FN1 foreign registration statement. If you are a DC-based business, it will take you to it will generate a different message and say, well, make sure that you are registered. And it will verify, it will pull you back. And I think I had said this. So the great thing about this new system is that they are talking to each other. So it will pull up, it will verify whether you have registered DCRA. It will verify whether your FR 500 has gone through, and it will confirm. So, that's a good thing about the new process. So making sure that you're properly registered. Then our next job or task is to ensure that we have a clean hands from the District of Columbia. Again, and you will get that from making sure that you have registered through the Office of Tax and Revenue and request a certificate of clean hands. Again, for those who are not from DC, you will need to make sure you have a certificate of good standing from your home state before you can even proceed to do anything in the district. You need to obtain it. In this case, we indicated we did not have a location in DC. In this particular case, they are not going to be required to provide, a home occupancy permit, because they're not really going to be, they're not going to have a physical office in DC. They're just operating, so they're coming in and out. But if you do have commercial space, then this would say make sure you have your occupancy permit for your commercial space. When you're starting out, there's some contractors who start out of their home, but they're not really operating out of their home. They might be renting a yard, they might be renting from somewhere else, but all the administration, all the paperwork they're doing out of their home. So, you need to check that with DCRA and make sure that you're being compliant with that. Business location, again, because, we, in this particular case, we won't have a physical business location. There's no residency or location restriction for this particular contractor, but for you, you may very well, make sure that whoever you're renting from, that you are able to have a copy of your lease, because you will have a business location. For those applicants for any of the following licenses, home improvements, salesperson in this case, that's why it pulls up. If you're employing, if you're an employer, if you're being employed by the business or an independent agent of the business, you have to make sure that, you're properly classifying them. So if you're an independent agent or if you're a W-2 employee, make sure that you, are properly completing your paperwork and that you're paying the proper taxes. So, and that they're, properly documented. In order to get a basic business license, in this case, the general constructor, construction manager license, like I mentioned before, you have to have copies of different documentation, and it will tell you the documents that you need and the license, the affidavit, copy of driver's license, especially, for anybody that's applying, you have to have a current driver's license, and a photograph and an affidavit. So a criminal record. So that is for home, that is for your home where you live. So again, if you want to do business in DC, you're applying for the license in DC, but you're living in Virginia or Maryland, you have to go to your home state to get your police criminal history report. Obviously, if you live in DC, you can go to your local, the Metropolitan Police Department at 301 Indiana Avenue and make sure that you are able to access your criminal history report. So that is really, in essence, the process for applying for your license. It just takes maybe some time to get some of the documentation and making sure that you're applying for the right license that you need. So I don't know if there's any questions from the audience. So as part of this series and thanks to the collaboration with the Greater Washington Hispanic Foundation, we love to do these types of trainings and help clients out. We, through my consultancy, we have a series of seminars, and we are putting together our contractor development program. So for construction-based companies, those who are sort of ready to take the next step and become fully vetted GCs, we are having different trainings, blueprint reading and estimating, and how to really manage your contracts, and project management. That's really key, especially for general contractors. So a lot of our smaller contractors, they wanna go and take that next step, and so training is key, education is key, and also financing. Once you have a lot of this in place, you need to be bondable. You need to be able to apply for a loan. If you want to grow, you need to take on additional, you need working capital. So having that relationship with the SBA and someone like Roderick is really, really key to your success. And the licenses is just one piece of the puzzle. So we are here to help you in any way. If you have any questions, you have my information, and I don't know whether we have any questions. It's always good to hear from the audience to see what interests and what needs there are out there, and how we can maybe tailor the presentation or the programs to your needs. That's all.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all for your time and patience. And should you need anything at all, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to serve you.